Far Cry 5 just released today, and yet there's a ton of benchmarking videos already with the expensive graphics cards, but I got a stack of budget GPUs to take care of you budget gamers. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome to Zach's Tech Turf. Today we're going to be benchmarking the brand new Far Cry 5 with some budget graphics cards, and if you want to see more benchmarking videos or PC building videos, then hit that subscribe button down below and also that notification bell, that way you never miss an episode. But yeah, both AMD and Nvidia just released some updated drivers for this game within the last 24 hours, so let's start some benchmarking. The 6 graphics cards that we'll be testing today are the GTX 750 Ti, RX 460, GTX 960, GT 1030, GTX 1050 Ti, and the king of value GTX 780 Ti. Just for some reference, I want to quickly talk about what other graphics cards relate to these graphics cards. That way if you don't have one of these specific GPUs, you'll at least be able to guess what results you should be seeing based off of my results, and just remember, these are some real rough comparisons. The 750 Ti compares pretty closely to an R7 260X. The RX 460 is close to something like a GTX 950, 760, or even an R7 370. The GTX 960 and 1050 Ti are pretty similar to each other, as well as an R9 285 or 280. The GT 1030 is pretty close to an RX 550, and finally the 780 Ti compares to a 970 and an RX 580 or 570. I'm going to be testing these cards today on my usual testing rig, which is rocking an i7 4790K, which boosts up to 4.4 GHz, 16 GB of RAM, an MSI Gaming 5 motherboard, and the games are installed on a Samsung 840 EVO SSD. The settings that you're about to see for each specific graphics card are the settings that I would actually run if I was using these graphics cards, and the footage that you're about to see matches those settings, that way you know what the game will look like. I also created this chart here so you can see how these GPUs compare to each other with the exact same settings: 1080p normal, no anti-aliasing, and no motion blur. And one more thing before jumping into these benchmarks, I did notice that there's actually not a huge difference between low, medium, high, and ultra, as you can see right now, so just keep that in mind because most of these graphics cards I did set to 1080p and low, but low actually looks pretty good with this game. Alright, so the first graphics card was the GTX 750 Ti. I actually just uploaded an entire video about how this card is performing in 2018, definitely worth a watch, and in 720p with low settings and no anti-aliasing, I only averaged 51 FPS. You could definitely bump this up to 1080p if you're comfortable with 30-ish FPS, but I always prefer to hit that 60 FPS mark. Next up was the RX 460, and here I did end up bumping it up to 1080p low, and I averaged 51 FPS. The reason why I kept this one at 1080p was because in 720p and even with ultra settings, it was nearing the 70s FPS mark, so I would personally prefer keeping it at 1080p. The GTX 960 was up next, and here I was also at 1080p low and no anti-aliasing. Like I said, get used to these settings, and here I averaged almost right on the money at 59 frames per second. The super budget GT 1030 was next, and this card definitely struggled with Far Cry 5. In 720p and low settings, I was only able to get an average of 47 FPS, still certainly playable if this is what you have, but obviously not an ideal setup. Moving up our list was the GTX 1050 Ti, and just like every other benchmarking video, it was neck and neck with the GTX 960, as it also averaged 59 FPS in 1080p and low settings. And finally, the monster GTX 780 Ti, which is really only in this video as a budget card because you can find some really great prices for it used online like I did for 80 bucks, and with this GPU I was able to finally crank up the settings to 1080p high, and it averaged 63 frames per second. Well, that wraps up my benchmarking video for Far Cry 5. I actually took an entire day off work today purely so I could get this video out on release day, and so I could actually enjoy the game. So it would be awesome if you could show me some love down in the comments section, or maybe even share this video with a friend. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please drop a like down below to help support my channel, and as always, thank you for watching. And please subscribe for more Zach's Tech Turf videos.